The story of Ethiopia and Eritrea is a tale of brotherhood turned rivalry, a relationship shaped by decades of shared struggle and painful separation. Eritrea, once part of Ethiopia, fought a grueling 30-year war for independence, marked by sacrifice and resilience. In 1993, former comrades in arms now led their own countries. But the joy of independence was short-lived, as old wounds and new disputes quickly surfaced, threatening the fragile peace. The main flashpoint was a small, seemingly insignificant border town called Badme. Yet for both nations, Badme became a powerful symbol of national pride and sovereignty. In 1998, war erupted over Badme. The conflict was brutal, tens of thousands died, families were torn apart, and both nations were left deeply scarred by the violence and loss. The war officially ended in 2000 with the Algiers Agreement, but peace was uneasy. Ethiopia refused to accept a court ruling that awarded Badme to Eritrea, leaving the issue unresolved. For nearly 2 decades the border remained closed. Armies faced off across barbed wire, and mistrust only deepened as families and communities were kept apart. The hopes and optimism of the early 1990s faded away, replaced by suspicion, isolation, and a costly military standoff that drained both countries. The conflict poisoned the region, freezing relations, halting trade, and draining precious resources that could have built a brighter future, that are still felt by families and communities on both sides of the border. In 2018, hope returned to Ethiopia when the newly appointed Prime Minister, Abiy Ahmed, took the world by surprise and called for peace with neighboring Eritrea, ending years of bitter hostility and war. Abiy agreed to hand over the disputed town of Badme to Eritrea, a move that had been at the heart of the conflict for decades and symbolized a dramatic shift in regional politics. The world watched in awe as Abiy and Eritrean President Isaias Afwerki embraced in Asmara, reopening long-closed borders and reuniting families separated by years of war and suspicion. Streets in both countries erupted in celebration, with people waving flags and singing songs of unity. Abiy was soon awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his bold and unexpected move. Optimism soared across the Horn of Africa. Many believed a new era of stability and cooperation had finally begun, and families who had been apart for years were filled with hope. But beneath the surface, the peace was fragile, and doubts lingered among political observers and citizens alike. The deal was struck quickly, behind closed doors, and lacked clear details about how it would be implemented or how old wounds would be healed. The real glue holding the agreement together was not trust, but a shared enemy, the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, which both leaders deeply distrusted and sought to marginalize. Their alliance was less about genuine reconciliation and more about sidelining the TPLF, which had dominated Ethiopian politics for decades and was now increasingly isolated. The peace, built on mutual interest rather than genuine trust, was shaky from the very start, with underlying tensions never fully addressed. Some warned that this so-called miracle was more a tactical truce than a lasting solution, and that the underlying issues remained unresolved. The seeds of future conflict were already sown, waiting for the right moment to erupt once again. The peace of 2018 quickly unraveled. In 2020, Ethiopia's government clashed with Tigray's leaders. Eritrea joined the fight, turning a domestic crisis into a regional war. The Tigray conflict was catastrophic. Hundreds of thousands died, millions were displaced, and atrocities shocked the world. Eritrea's involvement was driven by old grudges against the TPLF, deepening the conflict. After 2 years, a peace deal was signed between Ethiopia and the TPLF, but Eritrea was left out. Eritrean troops lingered in Tigray, undermining the fragile peace and fueling new tensions. The alliance that once promised peace now threatened to destabilize the region further. The Horn of Africa was left reeling from a war that shattered hopes and deepened divides. The Horn of Africa sits on the Red Sea, a vital artery for global trade. Instability here can disrupt shipping and spike energy prices worldwide. Major powers like the US, China, and Gulf states maintain military bases nearby, vying for influence. The UAE and Saudi Arabia invest billions, seeking both security and new markets. Their involvement adds complexity, as money and weapons can fuel conflict as easily as peace. what happens between Ethiopia and Eritrea ripples far beyond their borders. Local disputes are now entangled with global interests, making solutions elusive. The region's fate is a high-stakes game for the world's superpowers. Alliances in the Horn of Africa shift constantly, shaped by history, ambition, and the ever-changing interests of its leaders. After fighting the TPLF together, Ethiopia and Eritrea's old mistrust resurfaced, revealing how quickly partnerships can unravel once a common enemy fades. The Pretoria peace deal, meant to bring stability, instead sidelined Eritrea, straining relations further and leaving Asmara feeling isolated from regional diplomacy. Ethiopia stayed close to the UAE, seeking investment and security, while Eritrea drifted toward Egypt and Saudi Arabia, countries at odds with Ethiopia over the Nile Dam's future and water rights. These new alignments fueled proxy conflicts, like the civil war in Sudan, where Ethiopia and Eritrea back opposing sides, turning local disputes into regional power struggles. Accusations of supporting rebel groups now fly between Addis Ababa and Asmara, with each government blaming the other for unrest and instability. Each country now hosts the other's opposition, deepening the rift and making reconciliation even more difficult as distrust grows. The region is a tangled web. One move can shake the whole system, with every alliance and betrayal rippling across borders. The brief alliance of 2018 has collapsed into rivalry and suspicion, a reminder of how fragile peace can be in the Horn of Africa. The Horn's politics remain unpredictable and volatile, with every new development threatening to redraw the map once again. By 2026, Ethiopia and Eritrea's relationship is at its lowest point since the peace deal. Ethiopia, landlocked since 1993, is desperate for sea access and eyes Eritrea's ports. Prime Minister Abiy hints at using force, raising tensions along the border. Both sides have mobilized troops, and war seem possible in 2025. Ethiopia's attempt to secure a port deal with Somaliland angered Somalia and stalled. With that option gone, focus returned to Eritrea, and the risk of conflict rose again. For now, an uneasy calm prevails. Neither side wants war, but both are on edge. Ethiopia faces internal unrest. Eritrea is economically weak. The standoff is fragile. One misstep could ignite a new crisis in the Horn. The Ethiopia-Eritrea saga is more than a local feud. It's a global concern. Another war would destabilize the Horn, spill into neighbors, and trigger a humanitarian disaster. The Red Sea's security is vital for global trade. Conflict here would hit economies worldwide. The 2018 peace deal showed how quickly hope can unravel if root causes aren't addressed. Real peace needs more than handshakes. It requires trust, inclusion, and lasting solutions. The people of Ethiopia and Eritrea deserve stability. After decades of hardship, the world must engage, push for dialogue, and help prevent another catastrophe. Ignoring the Horn's tensions is a risk the world cannot afford.